All right, so online students, I'm still grading your stuff. So far, some of you have done a little too well. Some of you have done like normal. It's kind of hard to catch you cheating unless you like actually skip a lot of steps, and like I know you did. But remember, you're going to be taking courses later on in the sequence. So if you cheat now when I can't detect it, later on, you're not going to have online courses and you're going to fail them like quickly because you're not going to know what to do. So you're on your own honor to do what's right, rather than trying to get the short-term passing grade for the fucking class that, let's face it, doesn't matter for your long-term degree. You can instead take it seriously and do the work. If you are doing the work and you're mastering it and kicking ass, and getting like an A+ on the test, honestly, good for you. I mean, we did have that present in this class. So the in-person class also, there's students that got above 100%. But in general, that's not how it happens. All right, so I believe we are doing lecture day 17, and we are hitting 3 sections. Holy shit. 12.1 is on the distance formula and midpoint formula. We'll start there. So we're doing 12.1 through 12.3. They're all kind of short, which is nice, because most of the stuff you have done to some extent before. So, distance formula. Let's say I have a point x1, y1, and another point x2, y2. So that's x1, y1, and that looks like x2, y2. So our distance, we're going to call it d. D is the length of that line. And that is x1, y1. This is x2, y2. And to show you where this comes from, we're going to make a little triangle here real quick. And this point is at, the x point is x2, and the y value is y1. Yeah.
Could you also calculate, I think we're gonna calculate based on if it was the hypotenuse of the triangle, but could it also be the radius or diameter of the circle?
Which is also calculated on the hypotenuse of the triangle.
Exactly. Say, oh no.
They actually make the triangle in the circle when you derive it. But yes, the answer is yes. So there's this good formula for a triangle. ABC, it's called Pythagorean's formula. C squared equals A squared plus B squared. Pythagorean formula for a right triangle. Where C is the long side. So this is like my C here. And I can make this A here and this is B here. So my C, which is really D in this case. So C squared, which is really my D squared, equals the A squared plus B squared. Well, what is the length of A? The y1 values are the same. So that is going from x1 to x2. So if I want the length of this, the length of that line is x2 minus x1. So that's the length. So that's my A. X2 minus x1. And my B's, there's a y2 up here and a y1 down here. And the x value is the same, so it's not, it's just going up and down. We only gotta subtract y2 minus y1 to find the length of B. I'm gonna put B squared there for now because I didn't give myself a lot of room. So D squared is x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. When I plug in A and B. And that leads us to our formula. Take the square root of both sides. What happens when you take the square root of both sides normally? We have a plus or minus. So keep that in mind, plus or minus, but we're talking about distance. So normally taking the square root, we would get a plus or minus, but we're talking about distance, so does it make sense to say a negative distance? Negative distance doesn't make sense, so we ignore the negative one. We just do the positive one only. It's the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. That's the formula. Doesn't matter which point we pick for 2 and 1. Kind of interesting grading your test because I did them page at a time, so I didn't know, like after the first page, I didn't know whose test I was looking at to keep it fair. But when I'm looking at it at the end, I gotta go through your page all as one person, and I could see the pattern, like everybody in here, y'all got in your fucking head. And I know you got in your head. The shit you did right on the first 10 problems, some of you started making mistakes on those very same ideas in the latter half. And the problems hadn't gotten really more difficult or anything, just like you did it right over here, what happened? So you start getting like in your head. You gotta talk about how to avoid that in the future. Make sure everyone's got time to write this down.
When when we have a plus or minus outside of the root, what is the difference usually between, yeah, like in this case, we wouldn't want a negative distance. But when we also wouldn't do that for like a graph, like if we were graphing.
Well, in some cases, negative values do work. And so, yes, you do want to go in a negative direction.
Does it automatically mean those values are imaginary numbers?
No, only if the negative's inside the square root.
It's inside. But and only when root is a even number, when it's like 2 or 4 root 6 root.
Yeah. The index on it, yes. It's kind of interesting that high diver problem I had on there. I asked 2 questions. I asked, how far out were they when they hit the peak of their jump, their dive? And how far out were they when they hit the water?
2x.
I had there was two questions there, and most people answered one. And just like didn't finish reading the question. Just completely ignored hit the water, which is like you solve it completely different.
Vertex versus root, right?
Yeah, well, one of them, the water surface is where y equals 0, if you set that I to 0. So you set y equals 0, and the other one, you're doing the vertex and completely different stuff. All right, let's do a couple examples of these. So we're now 2, 4, and 5, 8. So I'll just label that 2 and 1. And remember, we're doing x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared square root. So if I do that here, it's literally just plug and play. This is ends up being calculated work at the end if it's doesn't simplify easily. X2, this is my x2 and my y2, my x1 and my y1. Make a little room. So x2 is 2 minus x1 is 5. Y2 is 4 minus y1 is 8. So I have the square root of -3 squared plus -4 squared, which is 9 plus 16, which is the square root of 25, which is 5. I'm just going to doodle over here on the other side. What if we swapped 1 and 2? Just the labels. This would have been, it changes the order of what's inside. 5 minus 2 squared and 8 minus 4 squared. But you'll see in both cases, you end up with 9 plus 16. So it doesn't matter which point you label. If you want, you can always sketch it real quick and go, does this make sense? I'm only gonna do it on this first one because I want you to see how it works. But 2, 4 is right here. And 5, 8 is way up here. I'm just gonna look at these lines real quick. This is 5 minus 2 is 3. And this is 8 minus 4 is 4. So this line was 5. The longest line, the diagonal line, should be longer than either of the other lines. So 5 is bigger than 3 and it's bigger than 5, 4. Good. That's not a guarantee that it's right, but you can always do the Pythagorean formula and check it. Boom. So you can draw a picture and check it with the Pythagorean formula. Which if you don't have memorized, you should memorize that too. That was easy. Let me give you guys a question or numbers to track. And we'll do it together in a couple minutes. Yeah,
We have a question.
yeah.
You wanna- What is your class over? I don't want to interrupt your class.
At 5.
And when.
They're doing a question, what do you need?
I was just wanting, when you're busy, but I was just wanting to check if like my results for my studying was right for StatCrunch, like if I'm doing my cheat test, like right.
Where's
I'm
Dr.
gonna show you.
Flora?
Oh, yeah, at 5 o'clock you can do it, or like I give them a break for 5 minutes, if it only takes 5 minutes to like 4 o'clock, if you wanna hang out for a half hour. But it's not that long of a break.
When are you available tomorrow?
I am in Visalia in the afternoon,
Me too.
email me and I'll give you the information. Ugh. Ugh, that's not friendly, is it?
No, it's not.
See, 20 squared is 400, 19 squared's gotta be below it. 190 and then 190 minus 19. So 361? 19 squared. What I did there is I did 19 times 10 plus 9. So 19 times 10 plus 19 times 9, and I said, well, this is like 19 times 10, which is easy, plus 19 times 10 minus 119. So 190 and 190 is 380 minus 19 is 361. That's how I did it in my head. All right, so what do we got here? We add that together. I got 386, which is a shitty number. I don't even know if that's divisible by 4. It doesn't look like it. So. If I wanted an approximate answer. All right, so you don't need to sketch the triangle to see what the sides are. If you did this shit, wrote it out. One of the sides is 5. Side A. Side B is gonna be the positive version of this, so positive 19. So 5 and 19, 19 is bigger than both of them. That's just your quick, like, does this make sense? If this number ends up being smaller than one of these numbers before you squared it, you done fucked up somewhere. Don't know where, but you did. That's just a quick, like, way of checking, and you don't need to draw the picture or anything like that.
This would be like a thin drive.
Yeah,
One side of it.
kinda. Compare, well, one with 19 is really, 5 doesn't feel thin, but compared to 19, it's pretty thin.
Yeah.
Relatively thin. All right, midpoint formula. New. I'll show you how to get it real quick. X1, Y1, X2, Y2, we're using what we did on the distance thing. This was X2, Y1. If I want the midpoint here, let's say that's the midpoint along X. The midpoint along X should be X1 plus 1/2 the distance. We'll call this D right here. That distance. X2 minus X1 squared plus Y1 minus Y1 squared. That's 0. We don't even need the square root anymore. Square root and square cancel out. One half X2 minus 1/2 X1. You're gonna see you get 1/2 X1 plus 1/2 X2. Or more easily shown as X1 plus X2 over 2. That's my midpoint along X. The Y isn't any different. We're just changing the letters from X to Y. So that is the midpoint from A to B. From X1, Y1 to X2, Y2. That's a derivation of it. You don't need to derive it. Just memorize it. It's the average of the 2 points. It's the average of the X's. Average of Y's. If you remember how average works, this is really easy to remember. So we just had 2, 4, and 5, 8. Let's find the midpoint of those. Two plus 5 over 2, comma 4 plus 8 over 2. Add the x's, divide by 2, add the y's, divide by 2. This is 7 over 2 plus 12 over 2 3.5, 6. And you guys can try the other one when you're ready. I'm being online students, I haven't graded the thing yet, I saw it, but I haven't graded it yet. They don't have the questions in order on the fucking paper. Like one of the pages has like 2 and then like 7 and 13 and. Like the next page, like. Just fucking. I don't know why. I don't come get it. Like I was so confused, I'm like, what, I email, I haven't graded, I'm like, why didn't you do these in order? What the? Do you know how hard this is to grade?
Wait, they had the ability to just move them around? Like,
They wrote on paper, like they didn't want to print it out, so they wrote on paper and,
so they wrote the question. And so answer.
no, they didn't write the question, they just wrote the number for the problem. And if there was a point, like the starting equation, they start with it, but they didn't rewrite the word problem or anything like that.
Oh, they just submitted it out. What?
It'd be different if like the pages were just scanned in the wrong order, but like each page, the questions on there were not in order. They were not sequential or in order. Alright, what do we got here? All good? That's all that's in 12.1.
Really?
Just distance formula and form. That's why we're doing 3.
Jeez.
And I took a little longer than I expected because I derived formulas for you. That way you know I'm not just making this shit up.
So we're not, it's not to do unit circle yet.
No, you won't do unit circle in this class. The next class. And you'll get more than enough of it.
So we're about an hour.
Jackie's like, fuck off, I ain't even taking the next class.
I have to actually.
Oh.
in summer.
Oh.
I have to finish calculus B in order to go to physics.
You gotta go all the way through calculus 2.
Oh, no, I'm not calculus too, just the big calculus.
Oh, pre-calc B.
Yeah. So then we're good, no, this is it after.
I'm like, I thought you said calc B and like,
Was it physics 20? Or is it physics 1? I heard that there's.
it's gotta be the one that's not calculus based.
Yeah, it's training opportunity.
12.2,
Okay.
parabolas. In fact, before we start 12.2, I want to show you what 12.2 looks like. All of these conic things are done taking an hourglass and bisecting it with a solid surface, like a plane.
Oh, that's what it is, it's an hourglass, I thought it was one of those, like tornadoes, you know, you can make them from the 2 liters, you just. Throw them around.
Well, they make a funnel like that.
Looks like that.
So it's basically 2 cones, like snow cones, the points touching each other, which is an hourglass shape. So the parabola comes from bisecting or cutting the plane through like this. A circle comes to just doing straight through horizontally. An ellipse like this doesn't, like the difference between this one and this one is they both cut through only 1 cone, but this one goes through the top and this one goes all the way through both sides, but not flat. This is called an ellipse, that's 12.4. This is 12.3, 12.2. 12.5 is the hyperbola, which is a vertical cut. And it looks like 2 parabolas, it's not quite. But we'll be doing stuff in there. So. You already know one of them. You know the vertical ones. Parabola opens up or parabola opens down. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Here a would be less than 0. Here a would be greater than 0. Remember our vertex is HK. And these both have an axis of symmetry. If I sketch a little bit better. Axis of symmetry. And it goes straight through the vertex. And the axis of symmetry is x equals h. That's the equation for it. Now, the one you haven't seen is for parabolas that open sideways. Here, x is by itself. And y is in here. The k always goes with the y. So this will be k in here squared plus h. And it has the same vertex. Our axis of symmetries are again through the vertex. Y equals k. The one that opens to the right, a is greater than 0. The one that opens to the left, a is less than 0. That's it. That's all that's getting introduced here. We're gonna do some examples in this section. There are more with parabolas, but it's gonna be 12.6. We wanna make sure everyone's comfortable with the left and right parabola before we start talking about some of the other things.
And as it relates to the cones. I guess the like three-dimensional shape, what we saw in those pictures are planes. Bisecting
plane.
the cone, it's
Yeah.
a plane bisecting
Yeah,
at a certain angle.
it's a plane bisecting a cone.
So you could find out the pitch, I guess, of the cone. Like how wide the cone is or how deep it is based on this.
I would imagine so. You need the equation of the plane. That's some deep shit right there. That's some Calc 3 level shit right there. So parabolas that open up and down. The x is squared. The parabolas that open left or right, the y is squared. That's what you gotta remember. And the other one is not squared. There is another way to remember this that makes it so it might be a little bit easier. Let's call this equation A up here. What happens if I subtract k from both sides? And if I call this B, what happens if I subtract h from both sides? I get x minus h on the left. So you can see that the h always goes with the x, the k always goes with the y. And you're just deciding, you know, which letter's got the square on it. They tend to be listed as these ones up here. But if you see it like this, I think it's a little easier to see that the k sticks with the y and the h sticks with the x, and there's no like hocus pocus, funky dunky shit going on here. It's just a different way of doing stuff. So let's do some examples of each. We'll do 2 of each. Anyone need that up longer before I start swiping? Okay. Let's start with the ones we know. Let's do y equals 2x squared minus 16x plus 25. And we're gonna find the vertex, the axis of symmetry, maybe some intercepts, and we'll sketch it. So if I want to complete the square, I have to factor out the 2 from these two. And I'm gonna have x squared minus 8x. I'm gonna leave this plus 25 sitting over here. Because we want x squared to not have anything in front of it when we do this. So here we take the -8, we cut it in half and we square it. That's -4 squared. Which is plus 16. I didn't just add 16, I added 2 times 16. So I added that, I'm gonna subtract 2 times 16. And that came from there, and that came from there. And if you write it out like this, and do it every time like this, you'll never forget. This value goes here, the sign comes down with it. X minus 4 squared. And then I've got 25 minus 32 is -7. I'm not confident in what I did. Let's check it. Before I continue. Multiply it out. Remember what square means. Negative 4x and negative 4x is negative 8x. Times 2 is negative 16x. And then 2 plus 6 times 16 is plus 32. And I've got minus 7. And so that does give me what I started with. So real quick check, just confirmed I had it right. What's the vertex here?
A positive, 4 and negative 6.
The y-intercept is really, really easy. What's the y-intercept? Y-intercept is when x equals 0. Don't do it in this one. If I plug in 0 for x, what do I have left? 25. X-intercept's gonna be a little bit more challenging. That's when y equals 0. We're gonna do the whole solving this thing. So I added 7 and I divided by 2 on both sides, and I get that. And pick the square root. And I get plus or minus square root of 7/2 equals x minus 4. And we did stuff with radicals before. If we multiply the top and bottom by the square root of 2, this ends up giving us square root of 14 over 2. X minus 4 still here. So I get x equals 4 plus or minus square root of 14 over 2. That's when y equals 0. Let's get some points there so we can sketch it. 4 plus square root of 14 divided by 2. I'm getting 5.87 comma 0. And 2.13. Ooh. Next page for the graph. Because my vertex is negative. I'm gonna do this in increments of 5 going up. We'll do increments of 5 going down, keep the same scaling there. And I guess if I wanna make the parabola look good, I gotta keep the same scaling going left to right. I could put a bunch of more hash marks in there. That looks like that might be about 4. Maybe that's about -7. So my vertex is there. I know I got a y-intercept up there. And 5.87 is a little to the right of this. And 2.13 is closer to 0 than 5. So we'll have points like that. If I do some symmetry. Maybe there. Just a sketch. If we needed precision, we would use a graphing calculator. In engineering, things that have parabolas in them. Satellite dish. This is a parabola. On your car. Your headlights, your headlamps. Are parabolas. Parabola for your headlight. Those are 2 common ones that you can picture right away. And when we do 12.6, we'll talk about the placement of the light bulb and generally where the placement of this antenna is, or the transmitter, receiver is. Yeah, there's actually a specific point that's optimal. So that's 12.6. But we want to make sure you're comfortable doing parabolas left and right, up and down. Let's take a 5-minute break. Give you a few more. Here, let's do another one. Let's kick it up a notch. Or kick it sideways. So if I factor out the 4. I have y squared plus 2y. Cut it in half, square it. And I get 1. And now I added 4 times 1, so I'm going to subtract 4 times 1. If you do a nice simple pattern the same way every time, not only can you see what you did, but like it's easier to do now, it's easier to remember what to do. But if you're checking your work later on, you can be like, you could more easily follow where you got your shit from. So that would be -7. So what's my vertex?
2 -7.
2 -7. Not quite.
-2.
-2. Here, y-intercept was easy to find because we had y equals so-and-so. Here, x-intercept is easy to find. The x-intercept is when y equals 0 And if I stick in y equals 0 here, I get -3.
Wouldn't it be y plus one? There's 2/2 is one.
Yes, it would. That makes the vertex -1. Thank you. James coming in saying the dead fucking day. It's like quit being a scrub, Jones. That shit don't make no sense. All right, so we want our y-intercept. We gotta set x equal to 0. Or y-intercept. If I add the 7 over and divide by 4, I got that. So I cleaned up that real quick. So we get y equals -1 plus or minus square root of 7/2. -1 plus or minus 1.3. So I'm gonna have, if I add it, I'm gonna have 0.3 comma 0. And if I subtract it, I'm gonna have -2.3 comma 0. Not a lot of up and down here. Wait, I wrote those backwards. There we go. I'm like, I got a lot of 0, there's. X equals 0 for the y-intercepts. All right, we got a vertex at -1, -7, which is way over here. I have an x-intercept at -3, which is right there. By symmetry, I should have a point here. And then we've got -2.3 and 0.3. This is. We'll have to do for sketch. Plus none. My 0.3 looks a lot more like 0.5, but. That's because I didn't want to take up a whole nother fucking page for a graph. What, Davis?
Because I forgot to adjust the words.
Let me give you one to try with this X stuff. 'Cause that's kind of the new one. That's the new fun stuff. Let's kick it up a notch too. Minus, let's go with 6y. And just to make sure you get started on the same page. We're stripping out the -3 hats. So you're gonna have -6 divided by -3/2. And for those of you that have not worked with your fractions in a while, multiply top and bottom by the reciprocal. And I get 12/3, which is 4. So +4y right there.
That's.
Alright. That's some bitch in half, squirt. And I get 4 again. So here I'm doing minus 3/2 times 4. So instead I'm gonna do plus 3/2 times 4. So I'm taking into effect the minus sign. The 4. And this is 12 times 3 plus 12 times 2/2 plus 6 is 9. What's my vertex?
Negative, sorry.
Oh, we done fucked up last time. Fuck it up now. It is not it.
-2 and 9 is the vertex, right?
No,
It's
No,
not.
because this is the K. And that's the H. And I fucked it up. I listened to you guys and I said, I rolled with it. We had this backwards here. Well, we'll go back and edit that in a second. This is 9, -2. Did I fuck it up there? Alright, graph -7, -1. Ha! And then we'll see in a second. When y equals 0. X equals 3. There's my x-intercept. And here we got. To find our y-intercept. And now I'm gonna multiply by -2/3. This is 18/3, which is 6. I don't know, what is square root of 6? 2.4 or some shit like that. Okay. 1.45, so if I add 2 to it, or 2.4, I'm gonna have 0.45 or -4.45. That's my vertex. 3, 0 is there. 0.45 and negative 4.45. Does opening to the left make sense? Our A is negative, so yeah. A is less than 0, so it opens left. All right. Oh, coming back to this one. We had said the vertex is -1, -7. Did I graph -1, -7 as the vertex? No, I didn't. And if I had, what if we actually plotted these points the way we should have? Because I raced through it. -1, -7 is way down here. And then I had an x-intercept at -3. And some y-intercepts at 0.3 and -2.3. I know it's a parabola that opens to the right. So it's got to do some shit like that. So this shows me V equals -1, -7 is wrong. So we had them in the wrong order up here. I'm gonna go back and change it. Correct it. That should be -7, -1. And if you were sketching them, you can see how you would see. There's no way to make a parabola with the 4 points I had there. Just no way to do it. I couldn't, I can't do this. And then all of a sudden, instead of going like that, no, it just curves and all of a sudden goes straight. That doesn't know. And I know it doesn't even open that way. It's supposed to open to the right. So that was a mistake. All right, 4.3. It's circle. Circle is the set of all points in a plane. Equidistant from a fixed point. Which is our center. And the equation for a circle x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Here, it's not the vertex, the center is HK. And R is for radius. Distance from the center to a point on the curve. Now, if you go all the way through the circle. The red line is called the diameter. Diameter D. I'm gonna go with big D. Is 2 times the radius. Or R is 1/2 big D. In case they try to get clever and throw a diameter at you on the fucking homework. So like when we had the x squared on parabola, it did a curve going upward. And we had y squared, we had a curve going rightward, but the circle has like both. So it has both squares. Look at some examples. Let's identify the center and the radius. So that's my minus h and that's my minus k. Or -3. What's my radius?
4 squared.
It's just 4.
Oh.
That's a good way to do it though. Write this as a square. And that way you can recognize that's r squared. So radius is 4. So one way of just graphing it. Without doing intercepts. Intercepts help. You should do intercepts if you're, like I'll have you do intercepts. On the test, so maybe we'll do intercepts on this first one. So I've got, let's look at the x-intercepts. X-intercepts is when y equals 0. This equation turns into this. X equals 4 plus or minus the square root of 7. Which is about 2.65. So 6.65 comma 0. And 1.35. So normally when we plug in 0, an entire term just goes away, but that didn't happen here, right? So you gotta be a little bit careful, don't just assume it goes away. Y-intercept, similar. X equals 0. This is gonna give us some nice points. Because y plus 3 squared equals 0. I take the square root, I just get 0. There is no plus or minus. Because plus or minus 0 doesn't make sense. So y just equals -3. There's only one, 0 or -3, yeah. 0, -3. Okay, so. The easiest way to go about doing this. Plot the center. From the center, count out and put a point R steps away, up, down, left, and right. So R is 4, I'm gonna go right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna put a point over here. I'm gonna go left 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and put a point there. I'm gonna go up 4 and put a point there. And go down 4 and put a point there. We can see our y-intercept right here. That's it right there. Maybe I'll put a little circle around it so we can identify it. Put it in red. My x-intercepts are 1.35, which is fairly close to 1. And 6.65, which is right about there. So there's my x-intercepts. Connect the dots. It should look like a circle when you're done, not a diamond. So I went 4 that way, I went 4 that way, I went 4 that way, and I went up 4. It's okay if it's a little like when you do it on the test, it's okay if it's a little lopsided. This is bad. If you look at it and go, that's a motherfucking diamond, I'm gonna look at it and go, that's a motherfucking diamond. And I'm gonna think in my head, I'm not gonna write it down on the paper, but I'm gonna think. You're either lazy or you're a moron. Cause you know damn well that's not a circle. And both options are gonna get you minus points. Put some fucking curvature to it. It don't have to be perfect. You might have something where it's like really, really like looking like really bad, but at least it's fucking round. So this is not great, but it's at least round. You guys wanna try one? I did some preliminary work. I did the center, did the radius. It looks like it's gonna hit both axes twice. So there's gonna be some fucking fun work here, right? So when x equals 0, I've got 5 squared. Plus y minus 4 squared is 49. Y minus 4 squared is 49 minus 25 is 24. So y equals 4 plus or minus the square root of 24. I know that simplifies, but in terms of graphing, I don't know that simplifying is gonna help. Square root of 24 should be close to 5 then. That's 4.9. I should get y equals 8.9 or 0.9. So 0, 8.9. 0, 0.9. If I do the other one, y equals 0.
That negative, 0.9.
Yeah, it is negative. Which is gonna make that look a lot better. I'm like, my dot looks way off. I got 49 minus 16 is 33. It's gotta be close to 6, 5.7 or so. Square root of 33 is 5.7. So negative 0.7, comma 0, or negative 10.7, comma 0. Wait, positive 0.7. And I could finish connecting my dots. Looks like I swung a little too high up there. We won't sketch the whole thing, but we're gonna do one more real quick. Because you've had it easy. Upgrade, yeah,
I just.
complete the what? Twice? So that's what we gotta do, we gotta complete the square tribe twice. I'm gonna group the x squared and the 8x together. Oop. And I'm gonna give a little space. And I'm gonna do the y squared minus 2y together, do a little space.
This is fishing.
And I'm gonna put the negative 8 on the, I'm gonna subtract 8 over to the other side. I told you this shit was coming back. Told you guys to learn how to do this. And on the final, then our next test, the final, I'm expecting you guys to do shit this way. Like some people did, like the parabola. Like they made an XY thing the whole fucking way without using any of the parabola shit we did. Didn't bother finding a vertex, no fucking XY charts. You can use that to fill it in, but like you need to be able to do some of this stuff. Alright, so we cut the 8 in half and we square it. That's plus 16. I'm gonna add 16 to the other side. And this turns into x plus 4 squared. Take our -2, cut it in half and square it. Get plus 1. This turns into y minus 1 squared. -8 plus 16 is 8, plus 1 is 9. But you've got a couple minutes.
Wouldn't it be -1? What, +1, because we added.
When you square a negative, no, we're doing it on the other side of the equal sign, so it's, we only do the opposite when it's on the same side. Like the parabolas, we were adding to the same side, so we subtracted from the same side. On this, we're doing stuff on the same, different sides of equal signs.
Yeah, so we have the +1 up there already, so then we can subtract the 1 from the 16. Because the +1's already by the 2y.
Right, but if I did the subtract one, I would have to do the subtract one on the same side.
Yeah, if she did the subtract one, then she would add the one after.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so when we do the subtract one on the same side, it ends up moving over and we plus 1 on the other side. You guys try this one real quick. And I'll throw out the answer in 2 minutes. Two, 4. All right, that's it for today. That's all that's going on with circles. We got 3 sections done in 1 day. Go team us! Now, just so you get like, I'm gonna bring it up real quick. Put it on the screen. Cause I was originally scheduled to go to Texas. To go see the solar eclipse. What the fuck? Later. Here we go. So it says Hefe's in Texas. Hefe's not in Texas. We're gonna have class that day, which is gonna allow us to stretch out 13.1, do it on one day. 13.2 and do, and because 13, chapter 13. Well, isn't the most exciting section. If we need to stretch this out, we'll be able to stretch it out. Otherwise, we might move some of the other stuff up. At some point, we're gonna want to stretch something out. This day is fake. I'm not gonna be in Texas. I'm gonna be here. I will send out an announcement as a reminder, so don't just think like you have next Tuesday off. As much as you'd like that.
You're not going to Texas at all?
No. I was gonna have to drive for 3 days straight and then turn around and drive for 3 days back. Cause they're not gonna like, otherwise I have to take off more than a week off work and that's not doable this semester. Not for a teacher.
I drove to Grand Canyon this.
Nice. Is that your first time going there?